welcome to Halls of Justice. So, Wanda, what are we doing today? What are we talking about?
Well, Murvet, we have some distinguished guests with us that are rejoining us from the last show, as you know. Yes. We have the distinguished, the Honorable Judge David Cunningham III. I love saying that. The third. Okay. And we also have with us Bill Raywall, or William Raywall, and he is the senior partner. Now this I have to have some assistance with. What's the name of your firm? So I know your name. Raywall, Glasner, and Chalef? Chalef, okay, fine. Raywall, Glasner, and Chalef.
Yes.
I've known you a long time. So thank you for being here. And Mr. Bill Raywall, you are the reason that Mr. Stephen Moore, former FBI agent, is with us on this show.
How are you?
Hi! We're all in awe of you. How much trouble can one man get
raise
into?
Your standards.
So, welcome back from the last show, because things were just so hot going on. We had to continue. So what we're going to do, once again, thank you for joining us on from the Halls of Justice. And my partner, the producer, and my partner in crime here, not really in crime, we don't do any crime, gentlemen, is Murvet Arnstein.
Hello.
And she is
welcome
a
back.
wonderful,
and welcome to our show.
Wonderful host and producer. Thank you for joining us today. Murvet, if you want to open up and maybe you can interview the judge a little bit, and then we'll run off, because we're going to take off on some questions with Bill and Steve after that. But tell us about the judge.
Well, maybe you could tell us about your background, how you came to be a judge.
Well, like any judge who gets appointed in California, I was appointed by the governor, and then I had to subsequently run for my position after the initial term was completed. But I've been an attorney. I've been practicing law since 1980, started with the U.S. Justice Department, and in Washington, D.C., trying civil rights cases, specifically for a couple of years throughout the United States. Worked closely with FBI agents during that time period, and then moved back to Los Angeles, where I originally had been in college, and worked for a law firm in Beverly Hills for a number of years, doing basically redevelopment law and eminent domain work. Got involved in a little bit of politics in the city of Los Angeles. And as a result of that, I managed to get appointed by James Hahn to the Police Commission. Served on the LAPD Police Commission 1 year as vice president and 2 years as president, and then a year as a member. And had a lot of use of force cases that we investigated, as well as set policy for LAPD. In the process, met a couple of governors, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, and applied for a judge and got appointed. And that's the short version of how I'm here.
One of the things about our distinguished guest here in Judge David Cunningham III is the fact that since he is so knowledgeable, I recruited him as some help because, okay, as just one of the common people around town and in the way I think. So I'm going to ask you all the questions that maybe, you know, one of the housewives would ask, or something to that effect. But Mr. Raywall is here. Yes.
And just so I wanted to, because on your opening is, why did someone get fired? I'm not going to participate in any discussions about any pending cases, for sure.
Absolutely.
Because we're barred from doing that as from part of the judicial canon. So I presume you guys are also going to speak a little bit about the Amanda Knox case, too.
We're going to talk about the Amanda Knox case, but that's the part you get to interview him on. So I'm a candidate. I was just so, I got involved in this because I called Mr. Raywall and asked him to do an interview for the show. And I know him as an outstanding attorney, and he has a voice that he speaks, well, at least he spoke for me when I couldn't speak for myself. So I was just totally floored with that. I'm the daughter of a pastor, and I know that he is a man of ethics, and I needed somebody, and he was there to fight for me. So when I talked to him, he mentioned Mr. Moore, and I was totally floored because he's been on NBC, he's been on ABC, he's been on CBS, he's been on, have you been on CNN? I think,
5 times last month.
Okay. So you have been on every major television station that there is, and now you're with us. And I'm very honored but it's all because of Mr. Raywall. So Mr. Big Time Quiet Gentleman here. and I have to give a shout out to his wife. Thank you very much for allowing him to come here on a Saturday and be with us. I appreciate it. Oh, and we'll keep your wife in our prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just thank you so much for being here, all of you gentlemen, and Murvet, you too. So, Mr. Raywall, I'm going to let Judge Cunningham talk to Stephen, but I just want to know a little bit about, I know how you contacted, or you didn't contact him, Mr. Moore's father contacted you, but if you could tell us a little bit about what you do at your firm, just a little bit, Simon.
Well, I've been practicing law a little longer than the judge. I've been in practice since 1972, and since probably the middle 80s, we've done nothing but exclusive employment litigation. I wouldn't say exclusive, but primarily employment litigation, wrongful termination, cases just like Steve's. We do wage and hour cases, and we represent the employee. We're not an employer-based law firm.
Yay!
Yeah. We put on the white hats whenever we go to court.
Okay, all right.
That's so the judge knows who the good guy is, how they should rule.
Well, thank you for being here. So I'm going to turn this over to Judge Cunningham, the third here, and I'm going to let you roll with it. I know you're the hardest working man that I can think of right now, so I appreciate it.
Well, I know we had spoken earlier about the activities that the agent has been involved with, particularly in Italy, in the Amanda Knox case.
Yes, sir.
And from an educational perspective, because obviously I don't want to get into the specific details of certainly your pending action, nor express any opinion about a pending legal matter. But I am curious as to how you would compare your experience in the Italian criminal justice system as compared to what we have here in the United States, particularly in the federal courts system.
It's kind of a fascinating difference in many ways. I've dealt with the court systems all over the world, from Pakistan to Greece, and what I find is that everyone has innovations that I would like to bring into our system. Everyone has issues that I'm glad are not in our system. I think everyone that I've seen brings something I like to the table. The Italian system is it is easier to get things into evidence, it appears. But at the same time, I think that they are more compassionate with with the people who are convicted. They treat them, I think, very well and with some dignity. So I like that part of the system. Their system tends to be very slow. They'll meet one time a week on a case, if it's a big case. And then they take the summer off usually, and no cases are done during the summer.
Well, for example, if a person gets arrested
yes.
In Italy in some location for a serious crime, such as murder in this case,
right.
How long between the time that they're brought into custody and they're arraigned?
They could go up to a year. Just to give you, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, especially being in the federal justice system, but when I would arrest somebody, I would need to be in court the next morning by 6 a.m. with that person. The first available opportunity for an initial appearance, or the police would call it an arraignment. Amanda Knox in Italy was arrested and was not even brought before a judge for 354 days.
So during that time period when she was detained?
She was detained.
Where was she kept?
In a prison.
And what access did she have to legal advice? She
was allowed to get a lawyer, but the lawyer couldn't hurry up the process. And really, you're stuck until the Italian judiciary decides to move.
So let's kind of compare that to what we have in the United States. During the time that she's in pretrial detention,
yes, sir,
She hasn't been arraigned.
No.
Is there any investigation taking place? Does she have the ability to approach a court and request bail or release? How does
she has some ways to request a release, but they are generally not accepted in those type of situations. They're not given. For instance, in Amanda Knox's case, she was not granted release because she had refused to apologize to the victim's family, which would have been an admission of guilt. And so she, being innocent, did not want to apologize for something she hadn't done. So because she had not essentially admitted her guilt, she was not given bail.
So once an arraignment takes place, what's the timeline between an arraignment and an ultimate trial?
Amanda,
in Italy, if you know.
Sure. Well, I have general guidelines, but
tell us how you gain that knowledge.
Through hard experience. I was a assistant legal attaché at an embassy overseas for a while. I have worked all through Asia and in Europe. I have working knowledge of how a lot of these courts work, but at the same time, like our own courts, they're so complicated that it takes a while to learn by experience. But Amanda Knox was arrested on November 5th of 2007. She was arraigned in late October of 2008, 1 year later. And then her trial did not start until January of 2009. So before her first day in court, she had spent 2 years in prison.
Now, her trial.
Yes, sir.
Compare the criminal justice system in a homicide case, say in Italy, as in the United States. For example, do people have the right to a trial by a jury of their peers? Because frequently what we do as a judge in LA Superior Court, we have occasions to go down and greet jurors.
Yes.
And we educate them about the differences in the judicial system, and particularly that many nations, unlike the United States, do not try criminal cases with a jury of people's peers. And that's a sacred right that it originated for us in our Declaration of Independence, and of course is constitutional. How's it done in other countries, and particularly your knowledge of Italy, since you've been there for some time?
Well, the Italian system does not give you a jury of your peers, which is simply crucial. They have paid jurors who are on several trials in a row, or for weeks at a time. And the judge himself sits on the jury and is essentially the foreman of the jury, and has considerable sway over the other jurors.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they paid jurors because they know the law? I mean, do they have to know the law and that's how they base their decision, or how do they become a paid juror?
They're not educated in the law. They apply.
They apply.
Yes.
We don't have those. We don't have any of those over here. You know, we try to get out of jury.
Get out of it.
And, Your Honor, one thing I'm not trying to do is denigrate the Italian system.
Oh no, and I'm not suggesting that. It's more of a comparative analysis, because if you do the research on where the jury system came from,
yes,
and much of it comes from ancient times, originally in Western culture. It started from the Greek system, and then ultimately the right to jury trial, at least from the Anglo-Saxon system, came about from the Magna Carta. And in our own founding documents, particularly the Declaration of Independence, part of the reason that certainly the states broke away from the Great Britain and United Kingdom, our view of how we wanted to run our own legal system, and certainly the right to jury trial was critical both in terms of criminal cases and in certain types of civil cases. So we really put in our system the importance of having a jury of your peers, which are typically they would be your neighbors, was the thought. Not necessarily professionals, but people whose common sense and common knowledge could determine truth from fiction,
yes, and
also assess credibility of people. So when I ask that question, I know that other nations have not necessarily mirrored what we do here in the United States, and it's not a question of which is better, although I have a bias.